Bismillahirrahmanirrahim and Assalamu alaikum. On behalf of Foundation University, Rawalpindi campus, faculty members and administration, I, Laiba Shafiq, BS English 5, welcome you all to today's seminar on how entrepreneurship and innovation can solve socio-economic challenges of Pakistan. We shall start our program with the name of Allah, the most beneficent, most merciful. I'd like to call upon Mr. Gurrez Naveed to recite few verses from the Holy Quran.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Ar-Rahman 'allama al-Quran khalaqa al-insan 'allamahu al-bayan Sadaqallahu al-azim.
Most important person when it comes to entrepreneurship, and as a dean I have always promoted entrepreneurship at all levels. I would request you to take this session not only as a casual workshop or a seminar, but truly as a very important learning session. Please make note of questions that you have. जाहिर सी बात है, अगर आपके माइक्रो लेवल क्वेश्चंस होंगे तो उनके तो डिटेल में हम नहीं जा सकेंगे, लेकिन अगर आपके कुछ ब्रॉडर क्वेश्चंस होंगे तो वी वुड आई एम श्योर बी एबल टू टॉक अबाउट देम, एंड सो वी नीड टू रियली लर्न फ्रॉम टुडे. सो दैट्स द ओनली नोशन दैट आई वुड रिक्वेस्ट कि हम इस में मेंटेन करें, और इस तरह की अपॉर्चुनिटीज़ ज़रा कम आती हैं तो आप इस चीज़ को ज़रा नोट डाउन करिएगा और इसे सीखिएगा. ठीक है? सो लेट्स प्लीज फॉर्मली बिगिन.
Let us initiate today's seminar with an introduction to our prestigious speaker and guest, Mr. Zouhair Khaliq. Mr. Zouhair Khaliq is a business executive with global experience in telecom as well as technology, and a deeper experience in both strategy, operations, startups, turnarounds, M&A, mobile money, microfinance, and real estate. He is a managing partner at ICE Advisory LLP, co-founder and partner at Team Up, service delivery partner to the National Incubation Center, and former CEO of Jazz, which was previously known as Moblink. Mr. Zouhair Khaliq also served as the president and CEO of Moblink from June 2003 to November 2008. During his 5.5 years at Moblink, the company grew from under 1 million customers to over 30 million in number. Furthermore, during his position as CEO, the company deployed over US dollars 2.5 billion worth of network, a nationwide optic fiber cable network, and launched wireless broadband services under the Moblink Infinity brand. Without further ado, I would like to invite Mr. Zouhair Khaliq to the podium to enlighten us with his experiences.
That's how I started my career, because in those days, 35 some years ago, these nice buzzwords like entrepreneurship, innovation, startup didn't actually exist in the vocabulary. But the mindset is still there, and I would like to think that that's what carried me through to where I am today, where you always look at how you can solve a problem in a different way, how you can disrupt something and make it happen. So I will, throughout this talk that I'm going to conduct right now, talk about some of those examples as well while we go through the slides. Please feel free to ask questions if you have them. If there are detailed questions, let's leave them towards the end, but if there is something which occurs to you, please just raise your hand and we can talk about it. So, entrepreneurs. So who are these people? Typically they are dreamers. They are people who are fueled by a desire to pioneer, to lead, to innovate and invent disruptive technologies, services, products and so on. And they've existed, by the way, throughout the centuries. It's only today now the emphasis is much bigger because a lot of it is now backed up by technology, and we'll speak about that a little bit as well. It's all about listening, understanding what's going on out there, and being able to then find something which makes a difference. Ability to listen is very similar. So you listen to see what's going on out there, and typically an entrepreneur will find a solution to an existing problem in a more disruptive, more efficient way, and build a business around it. Creativity obviously is very important. Without creativity, you're not going to disrupt, and that's almost a given. But more importantly, the next few qualities, I think, whether you're an entrepreneur or not, are very, very important for you as just people starting lives and careers as you go forward. And it's about assertiveness and confidence. You must be able to believe in what you do and have the confidence that you will make it happen. Otherwise, if you're going to sit on the sidelines and doubt your own self, you're never going to make it. Many, many years ago, at one of the lowest points in my life, I was sitting in an airline office, actually asking the gentleman to give me a loan to buy a ticket so I could go to an interview, because I didn't have the money to actually afford that. And it happened. I mean, thankfully, the gentleman believed in me. But more importantly, I saw on a little plaque on a wall, just as I was waiting to get the yes or no answer from this very important gentleman, there were just 3 lines which have stuck with me most of my life now. And this was over 30 some years ago when I saw it. It said simply, trust in God, believe in yourself, and dare to dream. And if you focus on those words, it's absolutely everything that our religion asks us to do, but more importantly, what you must be able to do in society. Trust in God, believe in yourself, dare to dream. Okay? And that, if you carry that every morning with you, you're going to go a long, long way, I can tell you. Courage and risk-taking is part of being an entrepreneur, because you're obviously going to go out and do something which is different, which is disruptive, which is going to make a difference, and often enough, you're going to fail, okay? Maybe several times. And that's the life of an entrepreneur. But and you often hear the phrase serial entrepreneur. A serial entrepreneur is somebody who doesn't give up. It's somebody who says, I'm going to make this happen. I failed once, twice, 3 times. It's not a reflection on who you are. It's a reflection on how hard you've been working, and you probably need to work harder, smarter, in a different way. And that's all it is. And that means everything, even in your careers. When you fail to get that promotion that you might be looking for, it doesn't mean it's the end of the world. Looking for an answer? Sorry. Okay. And most of all, perseverance. Because, as I said, if you keep failing and you give up, you're not going to get there, right? So all those qualities are things that you must ingrain in yourselves, whatever you decide to turn out and do. So just a few definitions. I'm sure a lot of you might have looked them up already, hopefully, but there were only 3 people who wanted to be entrepreneurs, so I will give you a bigger definition. Entrepreneurship is the process of designing, launching, and running a new business, which is often initially a small business, because you've got to start somewhere. You won't get to run a billion-dollar business day one. It'll grow gradually to get to that stage. If you look at the classic examples in the bigger, wider world, Apple, for example, comes to mind immediately. You look at the life of Steve Jobs. He started Apple. It was a company, became slightly successful. He was actually thrown out of Apple by the board and the shareholders because he wasn't apparently good enough. And many, many years later, they asked him back because they felt that without him, it would not go any further. So he had the confidence and the assertiveness and the belief in himself. He persevered till he got back in there. And then the rest of it, as they say, is history. Today, without the Apple iPhone, the iPad, you would not imagine life. Everybody else followed. The Samsungs and others obviously came around and competed with that. But if it wasn't for his dream, his perseverance, his ability to believe in himself, it would never have happened. And so many other stories of Google and Facebook and so on. And I will talk about local companies as well in a little while as we go through, just to ensure that people understand that it's not just happening in Silicon Valley. It's happening here today in our midst at this point in time. An entrepreneur is a person who starts a business and is willing to risk loss in order to make money. And the loss is not only monetary. The loss is often enough on a personal level. It means you lose a portion of your private life. It means you lose family sometimes, and so on and so forth. But it's somebody who believes that something needs to be done and wants to get there, and is able and willing to take that sacrifice. Entrepreneurship is characterized by innovation and risk-taking, and is an essential part of a nation's ability to succeed in an ever-changing and increasingly competitive global marketplace. And I want to emphasize that because where we are in Pakistan today, I hear every day desperation, depression, despondency, what's going to happen in Pakistan, hai mar gaye, ab to kuch nahi hai, aage kuch nahi hoga. But if that's the kind of people thinking any of you start believing in, then it will come true. Because you are the future of Pakistan. You have to believe differently. And I will give you reasons why I believe that the glass is full every morning when I wake up. Not half empty, it's half full. Okay. And it's important to put ourselves in the global context because Pakistan, as 225 million nearly people, is the 5th or the 6th largest population in the world. So we have an enormous marketplace ahead of us which needs to be addressed. So let's look at the trends for tomorrow's trends in global markets. And this is not something I made up last night. It's from a report by HSBC which says the world in 2030. It's available online. If you want to Google it, you will find a huge amount of more information. But I just wanted to focus on a couple of things here, which I think is important for all of you to grasp. And the trend of the past 5 years, approximately 3% global growth on average. That looks sustainable going forward. And it implies that in the next 10 years, by 2030, global GDP will be 40% higher than in 2017. So now, 3% average GDP, okay? The UK today is at 0.5% GDP growth per annum. So is Germany. France is very similar. The US, I think, is struggling at a 1.5 or 2%. We, this year, are still projected to grow GDP at 4.8%. So we are not only growing GDP much faster, despite all the naysayers and all the कि नया पाकिस्तान पुराना हो गया ये वो, all the depression that goes on every day. Look at the numbers, people. Don't believe what it says on the chat shows on TV. Start looking at the real numbers. We're still projected to grow at 4.8%, which is way above the average growth rate. Over the next decade, the world will shift. The whole focus of the world is going to shift in a different direction. 70% of global growth is going to be coming from countries which are currently named as emerging markets or emerging countries. We are one of them. Pakistan is one of those emerging countries. China will be the biggest contributor to global growth, and by 2030, it will be the largest economy in the world. India is to become the 3rd largest economy in the world, up from number 7 at this point in time. Am I boring you guys over there? It seems like you are in a different room. It would help to focus on, if you're not interested in entrepreneurship, that's fine, but if you are, just give me a chance to talk a bit more. Thank you. India, as I said, will become the 3rd largest economy in the world. But also, remember more interestingly, Bangladesh, India, Pakistan, Philippines, and Vietnam will be amongst the 5 fastest growing markets in the world. Let that sink in for a minute. Pakistan will be amongst the 5 fastest growing markets. And that is not me saying it, it is an international report saying this. So that gives you a different perspective, in my opinion, on where we are placed at this point in time. The World Bank says that Pakistan has important strategic endowments and development potential. The increasing proportion of Pakistan's youth provides the country with a potential demographic dividend and a challenge to provide adequate services and employment. That, to me, ladies and gentlemen, is a glass half full. Therein is the opportunity here. Now, I'm a great believer in technology. I might be a little bit biased. I've spent 30 years of my life in telecom and technology. But to me, it is the most important single factor that will help in the growth and development of any country, but particularly Pakistan. And that's what the HSBC report says as well. It says that technology will dramatically offset demographic drag. What this tells you is that despite the huge population we are talking about, technology is the answer to all of that. When you look at just examples in the local market today, go ask Kareem, for example, what they've been able to achieve in this country, as even beating the pants off Uber. And because they did the same technology and the same formula, but in a localized way. Ask Baikia, ask Munib Meyer from Baikia, ex-founder of Daraz. Okay, ask him what he's doing in Karachi right now. In 6 months, he has been able to register over 250,000 bikers, people who will give other people a ride or delivery. And there is over 2 million customers a month. So without technology, none of this would have happened. But with technology, it's not a problem. It will happen. And that's what they mean when they say that technology will dramatically offset demographic drag. Also, what is very, very important to realize is that growth will become more domestically oriented and more consumer-led. Talk to Daraz. I was speaking to the CEO of Daraz.com, Daraz.pk, and he was telling me that 80% of the business of Daraz.pk comes from the rural markets. 80%. Because there's a reason for it. We in the urban centers can walk to the shops, to the local malls and so on. But the guys sitting in the rural areas do not have the same access. But guess what? They have access on a mobile. And they say, I like this, click, and it's done. Okay? So that is very important to understand as entrepreneurs, aspiring entrepreneurs, that is something that is going to be absolutely key. The impact on other emerging economies will grow too. And what that means is that what we do here will definitely be adopted around us as well. Look at the markets around you. Okay, so India is not the most friendly neighbor we have, but all the countries like Afghanistan now heading towards peace, Kazakhstan, Kyrgyzstan, and so on and so forth, that's a regional market for you. Even the Arab countries. If you look at Kareem, all the technology was developed in Karachi. All the software was developed here by one of the co-founders, Mudassir Shekhar. Ask him how successful they are in Saudi Arabia, in the UAE, and in Kuwait, and so on. So that's what I mean here when I say that the impact on other emerging economies will grow too. We have startups at the National Incubation Center today, right now, who have just been invited to travel to Singapore and to China for them to get orders from those countries for inventions made here in this country today. I can go on and on about that. It's stuff that keeps me where I am at the moment. It keeps me awake. As economic might increases, the desire for greater political clout in international organizations and such like can be expected to grow too. We have just recently, in the last week, seen elements of that when our Prime Minister spoke at the United Nations General Assembly and highlighted the issue of Kashmir. For many decades, we've not been able to get up on stage and say what needed to be said. But now, feeling more confident about where we are in the world, we are able to say that. So it's all interlinked, guys. You know, when we talk, everything that you do, think about, needs to have a global perspective. You're not sitting in Rawalpindi and that's not it. You're sitting in a global world where it's like you're a fish within a big bowl, and everybody can see in and everybody can see out. That's how you should think about it. Now, again, stuff that really excites me, it's something that's also been part of my life for the last 30 years. Look at the phenomenal mobile and broadband penetration that has been achieved in Pakistan and is continuing every day. We have today, and these are end August numbers from the website at Pakistan Telecom Authority, 162 million mobile subscribers. That is almost more than 2.5 times the population of the United Kingdom. It's twice the population of Germany and twice the population of France, just to give you context. Okay? And that's just mobile customers. 71 million are on 3G, 4G. I'm sure most of you are here as well, right? Many, many years ago, when I was CEO of a company called Mobile Inc., we had a banner headline. Most of you were probably too young to even remember that, but it was about 15 or 13 years ago. We said, Mobile Inc. reshaping communications, because we felt at the time that we were in the process of reshaping communication. A couple of years into that campaign, as the company grew, as the number of mobile subscribers grew, I traveled to villages and towns in various parts of Pakistan. And when I came back, I said to my team, we're no longer reshaping communications, guys. We're reshaping lives. And so we changed our tagline to reshaping lives, because we were changing the way people did business, the way they communicated with one another, the way they did interfacing with people outside the country. And that was reshaping lives. Okay? And that continues to happen today with the advent of 3G and 4G technology, broadband services. Look at the number that's growing. That's even more significant, the number at the bottom. So broadband 3G, 4G customers are growing, increasing by 750,000 customers every month. Imagine where this will be by the time you guys are out in the marketplace doing what you need to do. Okay? Those are the good news pieces in Pakistan today. That's how I look at it. I don't believe the guys on the talk shows every day, because they, sorry to say, but they are speaking absolute rubbish. Broadband customers, 73 million. That includes broadband to the home as well as on the mobile. And again, that's increasing by 740,000 odd subscribers every month. That means that those people have the economic ability to afford those services. Pakistan khatam nahi hua hai. Pakistan abhi बढ़ रहा है, बढ़ेगा इंशाल्लाह. Now, what do you do with all this? Fantastic. We have, and I was asked today to speak particularly about innovation and entrepreneurship in the context of socio-economic issues. We have, yes, if you go on the websites and you start reading those socio-economic issues, mostly written by very, very depressed and down people who probably, I would feel, should commit suicide right after writing that rubbish that they do. Yes, we do have issues, but we have solutions. And I'm just going to look at some of the key socio-economic issues that are out there, and we could debate this till tomorrow morning about the number of issues we have. Let's look at economic growth. How does that happen? Economic growth happens when you empower and enable the common man. And we just spoke about this one here. We have the tools at hand today to reach out to those people. Right? So whether it is in energy, in agriculture, in education and literacy, all of that is absolutely within our reach today. We are able to reach out to those people as opposed to maybe 25 years ago when they were in rural areas and they were in depressed areas and you could not do anything about it. Today you can. This morning, the headlines, at least on my newspaper, said that the government has just approved a new e-commerce policy. I can tell you how excited I am about that, because what it means is that amongst all the other things that are happening out there, we will, inshallah, in the next 3 to 5 years, have the ability to include everybody into the commercial side of things. They will be able to make electronic payments. Everybody already is screaming and shouting about coming into the tax net, but guess what? That's the only way you build a country. You pay your taxes. And the electronic and technology elements of it are bringing in together. And e-commerce already is a thriving industry in Pakistan. It'll grow many, many times more. The activity around alternative and renewable energy is a huge opportunity in this country. The models around distance learning and education, huge opportunities in Pakistan today. Look at the model of the Khan Academy from the US. Why can't we do that here? We can, and we should be able to. And some of you as entrepreneurs will be able to do that. We have, by the way, in Pakistan today, an amazing, thriving innovation and entrepreneurship ecosystem. A lot of people are very fond of saying, "Yahan to kuch bhi nahi hai." Well, guess what? Just in the national incubation centers around Pakistan today, 5 of them, there is everything from health tech to gaming to AR, VR technology, agri-tech I just spoke about, ed tech, fintech, wearables, real estate solutions, IoT, artificial intelligence, you name it, it's happening, guys. Just because the guys on the talk shows in the evening don't know about it, doesn't mean that you should not know about it and you should not dream about it. You should. Just some of the recent startups in the last 2.5 years. I could go on. This is just a very, very brief list, just from our NIC. And there are, as I said now, 140 incubation centers in Pakistan today. Okay. And they're growing. They're growing. I often kind of joke sort of, my Punjabi is not very good, although I am from Punjabi background, but many, many years ago when I was growing up in the 1980s, people would say, "Ji tusi ki karde ho ji sade kol textile mill hai." And that was the thing that everybody was doing. In the 1990s, tusi ki karde ho ji sade kol sugar mill hai. And that was it. But today I joke that when you ask people, "Ki karde ho?" Sade kol startups ne. It's becoming a rage. It's becoming the new wave. And we all need to sit up and take notice. You all could be part of that. What do you want to do? Go get a boring government job for? What does that mean? Just because you get a few thousand rupees guaranteed salary, when you could become I'll talk about some of the people, you could become an Usher Aziz, for example. Usher Aziz, I don't know how many people here know about Usher Aziz. 2, 3. Shame on you. Usher Aziz and I went to school together, class 9 and 10, Islamabad Model School. Okay, nothing, no privileged background, middle class families. Usher Aziz he was amongst the top 50 along with me, students of the Sargodha board at that time in 1974. He then got a scholarship to American University in Ankara, from which he went to MIT on a scholarship. He then, many, many years after, and if he talked here, I recommend, gentlemen, that you should also invite Asher here if you want to talk about startups and entrepreneurs. He failed, and failed again. And then about 2015, in his mid-50s, he came up with a company called FireEye in the United States of America. FireEye is a firewall system that is today used by the Department of Defense and the Department of State in the United States. He IPO'd his company and became the first Pakistani tech billionaire in the United States. Okay. So just like you and I, he just came from Islamabad Model School in G6. Worked hard, had the perseverance, made it. Just one example. And there are so many others we can talk about. Right? So again, lots of other startups out there. There's a whole developing ecosystem. We have the 5 national incubation centers now. We have, industry startups. I was talking to the gentleman here. You have startups or incubation centers within academia now, which is great because it encourages people to think in a different way, apart from just looking for the next job. Because guess what? When 4 million young people come out on the job market every year, you can't all expect to get a decent job. The only solution to that is you create your own jobs. What's wrong with that? So just some of the stuff that is happening right now. We at the National Incubation Center today have some kind of event, whether it's a hackathon or a seminar or a leadership conference, every 2 days. Okay. For the last 3 years, mashallah, every second day there's something happening in a formal way. And that excludes the daily activities at the center anyway. I have privileged enough to be sitting on the task force for IT and telecom for the Prime Minister, and we've sent in a lot of very, very powerful recommendations on policy changes which will affect the innovation and entrepreneurship world very soon, inshallah. You saw the e-commerce policy as just one of the victories this morning, but there is so much more coming, and inshallah it will make a huge difference when it does. So some of the incubators and accelerators, we are there as the NIC, the National Incubation Center. Plan 9 has been there for a few more years before us, and so on. The Nest in Karachi, we create and invest to innovate, Eye to Eye as they're called, young by a very bright young lady, in fact 2 very bright young ladies, and so on. So there's no dearth of opportunity for you when you leave college to seek out one of these places to help you make your journey through an entrepreneurial mindset. Recent success stories in Pakistan, I just wanted to name a few because we talk always about Facebook, Google, and Amazon. But look at Zameen.com. Phenomenal success. You look at Rosie.pk. Monis is a personal, very dear friend of mine who started in 2007 with a great idea. And his company now is over $100 million US. Okay. His lifestyle's changed. He goes skiing in St. Moritz and the Alps now, and holidays in Greece. But that's part of the rewards of entrepreneurship. Okay. But remember, it took him 10 years. So it's not entrepreneurship or innovation or startups. It's not something that you swallow a pill in the morning and you get up and you're a successful entrepreneur. It takes hard work and perseverance, just like anything else. Okay. Classic example. I don't have a company called Innovate here. Sorry, I missed it last night when I was putting this together. Innovate, again, is the company which now has PhonePe. You may have seen that at many locations around the country. Bashir and Hasnan Sheikh, 2 people who started again in 2004. And it's only now that they have managed to get the market. 13 years, 14 years. Okay. Perseverance, my friends, perseverance. The ability to believe in yourself and keep doing it. Eat Oy, Symbiosis, Kaular, so many others who are out there just now. And these are some of the unicorns from Pakistan. Unicorns are typically companies which are above $1 billion in worth. Careem, when I'm sure a lot of you may have read, bought out by Uber for 3.1 billion US dollars. Do you know what that did? It's created over 200 millionaires in US dollar millionaires in Pakistan. These were founder employees of Careem who stuck with the company, worked their backsides off, and today are dollar millionaires. Okay? So it's happening right here in this country. Again, stop listening to the bullshit out there. Start believing in yourselves and start believing in your own country. Start believing in the potential. Some of the others, FireEye, I just mentioned Asher. By the way, having become a billionaire in the United States, and he has a fabulous home in Florida, but he spends 9 months of the year in Pakistan with a new company called Sky Electric, which is a solar energy company, which is addressing the energy problems in this country. So instead of complaining, people said, yeah, let me find a solution and make a difference. Stop complaining. These are the international investments which have come into Pakistan over the last maybe 5 or 6 years. So some of them you are aware of. Food Panda, Rocket Internet, Javago, Naspers, Daraz, of course, is a classic success, started by a few guys 5 years ago. Now bought out by Alibaba for 400 million US dollars. Okay. Pakistani successes. We're not talking Silicon Valley here. Pakistani people making Pakistani products and services and becoming Pakistani successes. In the last 3 years, from 0 venture capital funds in Pakistan, we have all these now and more. I just managed to get these off a slide I had earlier. But you look at Alaxan Investments, Sarmayakar, 47 Ventures, Invest to Innovate. They have money, guys, and they want to give it to you. They're looking for you. They're walking around with their checkbooks, wanting to write a check to successful entrepreneurs who they believe in, and they will put their money where their mouth is. So that part of the ecosystem is also happening at this point in time. Okay. We at Team Up are also looking at putting together a VC fund, inshallah, in the future. Mobilink Jazz will announce a $10 million US fund in the next couple of weeks as well. All aimed at encouraging innovation and entrepreneurship in the country. So, let's start innovating. Let's start building. Start solving the socio-economic problems of our own fellow countrymen. It's in our hands, it's in your hands to do that. Let's start building the economy from the 4.8% to 7.5%, 8%. In 5 years, I promise you it is doable. Let's start creating and redistributing wealth, which is the whole purpose of life. Let's think big. That's one thing I will always warn you about. If you think small, you will remain small. You've got to think big. You've got to think the whole universe. Remember the old saying, you aim for the stars, you'll at least get to the moon? Yeah, that's how it works. Think big, guys. Think bold. Think like nobody's ever done before. Another famous quote, I'm a great reader as well, not now because I just don't have the time, but if you come to my home, mashallah, there's books everywhere. And one of my favorite authors and poets is a gentleman called George Bernard Shaw. And one of the things that he said, again, which has stuck with me for perhaps the last 50 years of my life, He says, other people see things as they are and ask why. I dream things that never were and ask why not. Let's build Pakistan together. Thank you. Questions? Any more entrepreneurs suddenly in the room? Yes? No? Hands? Okay, so that wasn't a very effective talk then. Ji.
So I see a lot of problems now going on in the automobile industry. But I cannot see a gap in nowadays. As you can see, there's a lot of problems going on in the automobile industry. Companies are shutting down their plants, reducing their labor.
Yeah.
But I mean, to spark my mind, what the problem is, I see the problem. But how to innovate, how to monetize, how to fulfill this problem, I need ideas, and these ideas are not coming to mind.
So what do you see as a problem?
There is a shortage of money in the pocket of the customer to buy a reasonable car, say 8 lakh rupees, say 7 lakh rupees. So I want to fill a gap that somebody can buy a new car 8 lakh rupees instead of buying a used car, instead of going for other options.
Yeah. The Alto is 13 lakhs this morning.
That's the problem. The price is increasing day by day, and people are getting deprived of the new options in the market.
So there's another flip side to it as well. Toyota and Honda are saying that they have an oversupply of cars, and they are shutting down their factories because nobody is buying. So now, how many of you are students of economics in this room? Any students? There's a simple law of supply and demand. Okay. So what happens is, when you have less demand, you lower the price. You don't increase the price at the time. Okay. So this, to me, I'm sorry to say, and the friends both in Honda and Toyota and Suzuki, this is a drama. Okay. This is pressure on the government to change some of the policies that have just been put in place, which are bringing more people into the tax net, which I'm an absolute believer in. I refuse to pay. Even I'm building a home right now, and there is a lot of vendors out there who say, cash de de. I'm completely sorry, I'm not doing business with you because I want to do it through the proper banking channel. वो कहते जी अगर आपको ये चाहिए तो इस प्राइस में है 10,000 में, लेकिन फिर अगर आप कैश नहीं देंगे तो GST भी लगेगा. Now what kind of statement is that to me? GST तो लगना ही चाहिए ना. ठीक है जी. So ये जो अभी हो रहा है, ये glut है, ये temporary एक phenomena है. What has happened is these guys have been making, I'm sorry to say, shitloads of money.
They're called the trio.
They are. You know, when you buy a Honda Civic or a Corolla or an Alto in this country, I can tell you that for the same price in the United Kingdom, मैं 2 साल पहले तक वहाँ पे था, for the price you pay for a Honda Civic, I could buy a BMW 5 Series. Okay? And the technology and the quality is nowhere. So tell me how they justify the prices. So this to me is technically a current small short-term phenomenon, which will change because they will have to figure out that if the government holds to what they're saying, how long can they not do business? They have to, right? So when you lower the price, because that's what the supply-demand economic theory is telling you right now, it'll fix itself. Sorry.
Just to continue a little, I think it hurts the small person quite a bit, not just the car buyer, but the workers who have. So maybe the government should think about doing something for them in the meantime. This is, I think, this is just a comment. Maybe you have insight into that.
I don't, G, but my firm hope is that the government sticks to its guns and doesn't back off. Because इस अलमिया से हमें गुजरना पड़ेगा to fix our problems. ठीक है जी, we are 1.5 million people in this country are registered for tax today. 220 some million people live in this country off the back of the taxes of the 1.5 million. Kaise hoga? Kaise hoga? It can't be. It's not possible. No government anywhere in the world can do that. You have to start. और वो argument जो है कि जी वो tax हमें पता नहीं कहाँ जाता है. Guess what? You know, as I said, I've spent more time in my life in the United Kingdom than in Pakistan. And tax is a reality. वो हमेशा US में एक saying है कि the only two realities in life is death and taxes. हमारे मुल्क में apparently death है लेकिन taxes नहीं.
May I ask a question? The beginning slide you said about qualities.
जी.
Entrepreneur or innovator have
Yeah.
all those qualities or part of them? Or?
So देखिए, I'll go back to them. It's a good question. I think, honestly speaking, जो ये मैं बातें यहाँ कर रहा हूँ about ambition and willingness to learn and ability, that applies universally anyway. As a human being, if you don't encourage these qualities within yourself, I don't think that you will have a great chance of success. I left out a couple of things in here as well, which I actually start my life with. And the one word, and please Google it later if you have the time and the interest, is called integrity. And when you Google integrity, you find everything else here. All these other words, qualities, are integrity की बात आ रही है. सच बोलना, झूठ नहीं बोलना, टाइम पे आना, जो कि सारी चीज़ें हमारे मुल्क में इस वक्त मिसिंग है. We can't keep pointing to the government for everything. We have to look within ourselves if we are to become a better people and a better nation. But these qualities, to answer you, sir, are absolutely necessary for anybody, but particularly if you want to be a successful entrepreneur. Because it's not easy. Everybody looks कि ये अच्छा देखें वो करीम और रोज़ी पी के और वो फलाने हो गए. But I just described their journeys to you. The people who started Kareem, I happen to know not Mudassir, but the German gentleman who is his co-founder and partner, his name is Karl Magnus Olsen. So 2010 May, I was doing an assignment where I was restructuring Warid and Wateen Telecom at the behest of the shareholder Sheikh Nayan. And I hired McKinsey to guide us on some of the strategy part. And there's in that team a young man called Karl Magnus Olsen. He's probably 27 years old at the time. And after a year working on that team with me, he said, Zouhair, I'd like to have a coffee with you and need some personal advice. So when we stepped out for a coffee, he said, I'm thinking of leaving McKinsey. And I thought, are you mad? Are you nuts? Any 26-year-old would give their right arm to be part of McKinsey. But he said, no, I've done 3 years. I'm a little frustrated and a little bored with the monotony of it. And I'm doing this app on my phone. And this was before Uber. 2010. Kareem got $3.1 billion 3 months ago. So it's taken them how long? So I come to the perseverance, I come to the creativity part, I come to the courage and risk-taking part. To leave McKinsey and to start something like this takes courage, it takes humility, it takes perseverance. So the qualities are right there. Again, I'll go back to Monis. Monis came back as a young graduate of a master's from the US. I was president of the Lahore Indus Entrepreneurs Chapter at the time, the Thai chapter. So he joined me there. And 2 years later, when I was leaving the country, I handed over to Monis because I thought he was the brightest, most hardworking guy in the entire chapter. So I nominated him to lead the chapter. And that was 2008. And his company was valued at 100 million plus last year. So again, 10 years of perseverance, hard work, focus, right? I dream things that never were and ask why not. Questions? अभी तक तो सारे प्रोफेसर्स ने क्वेश्चंस पूछे, स्टूडेंट्स लगता है डिसएंगेज ने पूछे।
सर मेरा क्वेश्चन है कि ये इसमें आपने क्रिएटिविटी है, एबिलिटी टू लिसन है, सारा कुछ ई कॉमर्स काफ़ी जो है अभी मार्केट में मतलब इसमें काफ़ी लोग आना चाहते हैं
जी।
बट एट द सेम टाइम अगर आप देखें तो एज अ वेंडर एक ट्रस्ट डेफिसिट है, ठीक है, कि हम जो कई दफ़ा ऑर्डर करते हैं वो चीज़ नहीं आती। सेकेंडली लिटरेसी रेट 6% हमारा सिर्फ लिटरेसी रेट है उसके साथ हम सर्वाइव करते हैं। फिर उसके बाद सर जो हमारे जो कंज्यूमर राइट्स, मतलब एक बंदा अगर चीज़ ऑर्डर करता है उसको वो चीज़ नहीं मिलती, इसकी अवेयरनेस, इस सारी चीज़ों को देखते हुए इसका स्टार्टअप कैसे हो सकता है? मतलब कि अगर एक बंदा है जिसको नहीं पता है कि मुझे गलत चीज़ आ गई है, और मैं भी एज अ वेंडर ये सोच रहा हूँ कि मैंने तो सर्विसेज ठीक देनी है, बट अगर उसको नहीं पसंद, उसके क्लेम्स है, वारंटी है, सब कुछ है, इसमें इसको कैसे सक्सेसफुल बनाया जा सकता है विद दिस लिटरेसी रेट, ट्रस्ट डेफिसिट और इस सब चीज़ों को?
So let me address those. आपकी काफ़ी सारी questions हैं. So first thing, अभी आप अगर जाते हैं अपने लिए सुबह में ब्रेड और एग्स लेने के लिए एक दुकान पे, and you find when you come home कि वो स्टैंडर्ड सही नहीं है, तो आप क्या करते हैं? वापस चले जाते हैं, एक दफ़ा, दूसरी दफ़ा, तीसरी दफ़ा you change the vendor, you go to a different shop, right? So that's what's going to happen in e-commerce as well. There will be multiple vendors, and the ones who stick to, as I said earlier, integrity, honesty, give quality service will survive. That's the law of nature, isn't it? The fittest will survive, and the others will die away. Now, coming to literacy, please do not ever underestimate कि किसी के पास अगर PhD नहीं है या BCom की डिग्री नहीं है कि they are not literate. Because to operate a mobile internet, I watch my cook, my driver, my servant, everybody handle it better than I do. Many years ago, I was sitting in a conference of governors of central banks, 200 odd countries के थे वहाँ पे. And I was privileged enough to be called as a keynote speaker. And वो हार्वर्ड के दो डॉक्टर साहब थे, बैठे हुए थे, वो कहने लगे कि जी this कभी हो ही नहीं सकेगा because people in your countries are all illiterate. And I said to them that when we grew Mobilink from 1 million customers to 31 million customers, and the whole market from 2 million to 70 million in 5 years, उस वक्त भी लोग यही कहते थे. Never underestimate the fact कि वो जो बैठे हैं वहाँ पे, उसको मुझसे ज़्यादा पता है गांव में कि जी ये नाइट पैकेज है, ये डे पैकेज है, ये टेलीनॉर का है, ये जोंग का है, ये इतना मिनट चीपर है, ये इतने मिनट महंगा है, ठीक है? That's all he needs, right? And he can 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 0. That's all he needs to know. And he figures it out. Never underestimate. The fact that you today have 162 million mobile customers is absolute validation of what I am saying. The fact that you have 73 million internet customers today is a testament exactly to that. Literacy is not a hindrance to this. जो बाकी आप बात कर रहे हैं, yes, consumer rights की बात कर रहे हैं, laws की बात कर रहे हैं, देखें, they are going to evolve. They are going to evolve over a period of time. Because most governments, M-Pesa, जब केन्या में शुरू हुआ, and it is a phenomenal success, अगर आप उसको Google करके देखें, I traveled through Nairobi to 4.5 hours to a game reserve about 2015 की बात है. And 3-4 दफ़ा हमारी पूरी वैन थी, उसमें हम मेरे ख्याल 15-20 लोग थे. I must have stopped about 3 or 4 times on the way, चाय पीने के लिए, कोई पानी की बोतल. Nobody accepted cash. M-Pesa. काला बेचारा वहाँ पे बिल्कुल चप्पलें पहन के खड़ा है, छोटा सा खोखा है उसका, वो कहता है मैं तो सिर्फ M-Pesa लूँगा. Won't take cash. No, but उसमें मज़े की बात ये सर कि when they started M-Pesa, and I'm very familiar, it's a personal friend, Nick Hughes, who came up with the whole idea. The Central Bank of Kenya had no idea कि इसको कैसे regulate करना है. They caught up with the regulation 5 years later. So उस दौरान उन्होंने ये तो नहीं कहा कि ये कैसे चलेगा. The idea was great and it worked. Ultimately, the central bank came back with the right regulation and policy and framework, and there was negotiation between them. Because when you are at the cutting edge of technology, you can't anticipate how to make rules and regulations because you don't know them. आपको पता नहीं है कि उसके आगे होगा क्या. So it's almost impossible to create those rules and regulations and the regulatory framework until you are in it. जब हमने मोबाइल शुरू किया यहाँ पे 25-26 साल पहले, so do you realize कि मोबाइलिंग ने लॉन्च किया in August of 1994 in Lahore in Islamabad, and we launched in Karachi in 1st of December, and on the 4th of December we were shut down by the regulatory authorities for 22 months because they said कि जी वो जो लिस्ट उससे पहले टेक्नोलॉजी फ़र्क थी, एम्प्स के नेटवर्क्स थे उनके उस ज़माने में. अगेन यू गाइज आर नॉट प्रॉब्ली सम ऑफ यू मे नॉट हैव बीन बोर्न एट दैट टाइम. बड़ा एक शुगल होता था कि शाम में एफएम रेडियो पे बैठ के लोगों की मोबाइल कॉन्वर्सेशन सुनते थे. ठीक है. व्हेन वी इंट्रोड्यूस जीएसएम टेक्नोलॉजी यू कुडंट डू दैट. द टेक्नोलॉजी वाज एनक्रिप्टेड. So the authorities came and said, ये तो नहीं आप चला सकते क्योंकि हम सुन नहीं सकते. It took 22 months of new regulation and changes in the systems and processes to arrive, and I won't go into the details because pakad lenge bahar. Everybody was happy and the system went on and thrived. आज देखिए आप कहाँ पर हैं. ठीक है. So the lack of some of the ecosystem should never stop you from innovation. That's the whole definition of innovation. That's the whole point. You're breaking new ground. You're doing what nobody's done before. You're going where no man has gone before. Okay? Again, one of my other points, when a lot of people choose I always choose the path less trodden. I've forgotten the whole मिसरा, लेकिन I always choose the path less trodden. Because बाकी तो सब जा ही रहे हैं ना. आप उनके पीछे पीछे जाएंगे तो क्या करेंगे? You're not going to be successful because there are too many people ahead of you. So you have to break new ground and find a new path. And that's the only way innovation works. That's how entrepreneurship works. Any other questions?
Sir, first of all, I would like to introduce myself. I'm Hamza, and I have created my ideas since to you in PIC Business Innovation Center. Basically, my question is, sir, obviously all startups does not get success. So, for example, usually students जो है demotivate होते हैं कि startup चलेगा या नहीं चलेगा. Usually मैं भी sometimes जो है demotivate हो जाता हूँ कि यार startup चलेगा. तो उसके लिए मुझे क्या करना चाहिए कि मुझे मज़ीद टाइम देना चाहिए startup को, या फिर अगर वो स्टार्टअप नहीं चल रहा तो मुझे दूसरा आइडिया भी सोचना चाहिए, कोई इनोवेटिव आइडिया हो ताकि मैं जो है उसको डेवलप कर सकूं.
It's a good question, very good question. Again, it happens all the time. So there's no easy answer either. ठीक है. 2 months is not enough. अब जैसे मैंने आपको ये यहाँ स्टोरीज बताई हैं, people have stuck with their ideas for 7, 8, 10 years before they became a success. But in order to stick with that, you need to be constantly in touch with the marketplace and the global marketplace. क्योंकि होता अक्सर ये है कि वो आप एक आइडिया लेते हैं और आप समझते हैं मैं तो बहुत ही फने खान हूँ, मुझे ये आइडिया आ गया, and that's it. But it might well be that the market is not ready for it. In 2002, I left a very nice job at Motorola. उस ज़माने में Motorola used to grow at 25% per annum. But मुझे भी कीड़ा था, I was still young enough. And I went and joined, उस ज़माने में एक फिनोमेना होता था called .coms, जिनको आजकल हम startups कहते हैं. So it was the era of the .com. Internet abhi abhi aaya tha, so everything was abc.com. So I was brought in by a young founder who was himself 28 years old. I was brought in as, he was the CEO and the founder, and I was the grey hair. I was 38, थोड़े से बाल सफ़ेद हो रहे थे. So I was more experienced grey hair as the chief operating officer. Just telling you कि sometimes जो journey कैसे गुजरती है. We had a company called wcities.com. जब मैं आपको उसके जो बताऊंगा कि उसके पीछे क्या था, you might find it familiar in today's world. But back then, remember, there was no 3G. There wasn't even 2.5G. Services सिर्फ उनको उस ज़माने में एक होता था WAP कहते थे, Wireless Access Protocol. It was the birth of 2.5G, 3G, 4G. उससे बहुत पहले की बात है. Even before another acronym called GPRS, which was General Packet Radio Systems. हमारा कॉन्सेप्ट क्या था और मेरे फाउंडर का कॉन्सेप्ट ये था कि आप इंटरनेट पे जाएं. मैंने आज गुजराती खाना खाना है शाम को. So I Google and I find कि रावलपिंडी में 3 रेस्टोरेंट हैं. I doubt it, but let's say. लंदन में मैं बैठा हूँ, I want to have some French food. I Google and there is a description of all the restaurants and I have a brief description underneath to say कि ये क्या खाना है, किस टाइप का था, एटमॉस्फेयर कैसा है, और एक 3 to 5 स्टार रेटिंग उसके अंदर. और उस क्रिएशन ऑफ कंटेंट जो था वो यंग स्टूडेंट्स करते थे. उनको हम $10 देते थे, जाओ जाके ज़रा खाना खाओ, फिर हमें बताओ कैसा है रेस्टोरेंट. ठीक है. वी हैड एट द टाइम ओवर 450 cities in the world covered. So it was supposed to be a global system. उसके बाद हमें आइडिया ये आया कि इसी चीज़ को, we bought another small company which basically measured the number of times your tire turned to cover the distance and is connected to a satellite system so that even if you went into a tunnel and you came out at the other end, it would still match कि आप कहाँ जा रहे हैं और कितना आपकी gyration आ रही है. Very scientific, I'm just trying to explain in layman's terms. There was no smartphone. ठीक है जी. We're talking 2002. Apple came out in 2007. हम समझते हैं हमेशा से था. Especially for all you guys who were probably born with a phone in their hands. उस ज़माने में नहीं था. But we had something called the compact iPack. एक मोटा सा होता था. For those of you who are my age here or slightly younger might remember. हमने उसके पीछे एक प्लास्टिक स्लीव डिवाइस की. उस डिवाइस के अंदर हम उसको iPack को पार्क करते थे. उसके अंदर एक सिम कार्ड की भी जगह थी. So अगर आप सोचें, this was today's iPhone और Samsung. हमने उस ज़माने में इनोवेट किया था. ठीक है. वो गाड़ियों में लग जाता था, लोग हाथ में इतना मोटा सा लेके फिरते थे. The problem was कि there was no communication. वो GPRS और 3G पे dependent था and 3G got delayed by about 2.5-3 years. हमारा सारा फॉर्मूला जो था कि जी 3G जिस दिन लॉन्च होगा तो हमारा सिस्टम चल पड़ेगा. 3 साल की सकत नहीं थी, इतनी फंडिंग नहीं थी हमारे पास. ठीक है. That whole system, the whole company got wound up, liquidated. I did not get a salary for over 1 year. So I was completely broke when I left the company. मेरे पास इतने नहीं पैसे कि अगले महीने के बच्चों की स्कूल फीस दे दूँ और घर का मोर्गेज जो था मेरे पास लंदन में. That liquidation lasted 2 years. जिसके बाद उस ज़माने में जब उन्होंने मुझे हायर किया था, बाय द वे मेरी £100,000 की सैलरी थी साल की. इमेजिन करें जब 1 साल नहीं मिली तो कितने डेफिसिट है आपके पास. ठीक है. एंड आई यूज्ड अप ऑल माई सेविंग्स बाय दैट टाइम. The IP for that whole concept was sold and for $50,000. जबकि कंपनी के अंदर मेरा ख्याल है कोई $30-40 मिलियन लग चुका था. $50,000 की IP सेल हुई. उसके 1 साल बाद मुझे लिक्विडेटर्स की तरफ से, ग्रांट थॉर्नटन थे उस ज़माने में, वहाँ पे एक चेक आया $320 पाउंड और 26 पेंस, वो मैंने अभी तक फ्रेम करके रखा. I never cashed the check. It was to remind me that failure happens. Also, remember, what is Google today, by the way? यही चीज़ है. उसके अंदर फीचर था कि अगर मैंने लंदन से पेरिस जाना है तो मेरे साथ 2 छोटे बच्चे हैं, बेगर और मैंने तो फ्रेंच फूड खाना है, लेकिन बच्चे सिर्फ मैकडोनल्ड्स खाएंगे, तो हमें उस रूट से लेके जाएं ताकि हम दोनों चीज़ें कर सकें. That's what Google Maps does today, guys. Right? But we were 10 years too early. Google didn't exist at the time. There was no such thing called Google. We were perhaps 10 years ahead of our time. Brilliant idea, but it was not the right time for it. So आपकी जो question long-winded way में मैं आंसर कर रहा हूँ वो ये है कि there is also a time for everything. इस मुल्क में मोबाइल टेक्नोलॉजी जब इंट्रोड्यूस हुई 91 में, 91 से लेके 2003 तक the total population of mobile subscribers was 2 million. 11 साल में. Policies changed. उस वक्त तक people had woken up to the ideas and the regulatory system changed. एक चीज़ होती थी calling party pay, as opposed to उस ज़माने में होता था कि आप receive करते थे call तो भी आपके ऊपर charge होता था. वो जब change हुआ और prepaid cards की technology आ गई, तो 2003 से 2008 में it went from 2 million to 72 million subscribers. Because the time had arrived for the technology. So ये होगा. Innovation is always ahead of its time. And regulatory frameworks, people's thinking, people's acceptance, people's adoption will always lag. That is why it's called innovation. I hope I've tried to answer your question and yours. Other questions?
I'm an entrepreneur. I'm unable to convince myself to not have an organic company. I don't believe that I should bring in investors for 2 reasons. Number one, I'm in the start of my business, and an investor may give low value to my business and will take a share for my idea and my hard work. And second reason is that whenever I go for some big joints and give the pitch over there, if they rejected me, that's the insecurity I feel. If they rejected me, I came back to my office and they started working on that. That's why I don't go there, I don't present my idea over there. So,
okay. Two questions here. I'll answer the last one first. जो failure की बात कर रहे हैं आप, rejection की बात कर रहे हैं. So, most of us, we need to cast our minds back कि जब हम अपनी माँ की गोद से एक दिन उठ के फाइनली चलने लगे तो हम गिरे. एक दफ़ा नहीं, 2 दफ़ा, कई दफ़ा गिरे होंगे. Before we learned how to walk, right? ऐसे तो किसी, I don't know anybody जो एक दिन उठे और आप चल पड़े और भागने लग गए. Maybe Superman or his son might have done it, but the rest of us, I'm not sure. So that's my answer to your first part कि देखिए अब उस वक्त अगर आप कर सकते थे कि गिर गिर के बार बार फिर उठ के चल पड़े. So what stops you now? Failure should not stop you. Rejection should not stop you. ठीक है, first part. The second part is, it's an old African saying, if you have to go far, travel with somebody. ये एक हमारे मुल्क का बहुत बड़ा प्रॉब्लम है. I'm sorry, you're a case study right now, but the reason our companies have not become global and international क्योंकि हम ऐसे करके पकड़ते हैं. ये तो मेरा है, ये तो ऐसे ही रहेगा. So ठीक है, 1, 2, 5 करोड़ 10 करोड़ की कंपनी बन गई, 1 अरब की भी बन गई, लेकिन वो 1 अरब डॉलर की उस वक्त बनेगी when you include people with you. That's the whole point कि जब हम venture capital की बात करते हैं, partners की बात करते हैं. I, in my National Incubation Center today, will not accept any person who comes alone. मेरे पास ये idea है. It could be the greatest idea in the world. I say sorry, not going to ask you to come because you are not an entrepreneur. You may think you are, but you're not, because no one person has all the skill sets. जितनी बात हुई ना यहाँ पे, you may be a techie, you may be a marketeer, you may be a finance whiz kid, etc. But it's very rare that all of it is together. So the whole point when we interview people for our teams which are inducted into the incubation center, and by the way, the success rate is 3%. Only 3% of the people who apply are actually given a place. And for exactly these reasons. If a bunch of team members come to me and pata lagta hai ki sab tech based hai ya software developers hain, we reject them. Because their chance of success is almost zero. But if I find a team which has a software developer or a techie with a finance guy and a marketing guy, I'll say, yeah, this team might succeed. Because that's exactly the point. Okay? Unless and until you are not the font of all knowledge, never will be, none of us are. So unless you include those people with you who bring those skill sets with them, you will never grow or develop to a large degree. That's my answer.
Assalamu alaikum, sir. So I'm Dr. Khaliq.
Ji, sorry.
Sir, I need your inputs on two questions. One is for student and one is for myself.
Ji.
Like literature on entrepreneurial skills and trade is very much fragmented. And being a teacher, for example, like the trade is a cognition and skills can be teaching class. So what critical skills you suggest to us as a teacher to teach in class to our students? Number one, what critical skills? The second one skill, kindly share one of the occurrence from your industry which I can conceptualize for further exploration.
Okay, difficult question. Okay, if in order to teach anything, whatever it is that you're teaching, if you've also just read it in a book yourself, the teaching quality is going to be very different. If you've done it yourself, if you've lived that life, then it becomes a far more effective transfer of knowledge. That's a fact. Okay? And often enough, I'm sorry about the criticism, colleges have incubation centers run by professors who've read a book on entrepreneurship and never done a single day's work in entrepreneurship themselves. And that I call criminal, to be honest. That's not how it should be. You've got to be able, whether you're teaching science or mathematics or whatever else it is, you have to have the practical knowledge to transfer to other people. I'm not sure about the other question, but here's kind of an answer. I hope it's the right one. You look at the mobile companies today, mobile operators, sirf is mulk mein nahi, but even outside. And I've again was privileged enough to be on boards of various operators in different countries over the last 10 years or so. To me, they have all plateaued. They've all failed. Okay. Despite the massive growth, जो अभी मैंने बात की आपसे, and they're doing fine in that sector. कि उन्होंने 2000 में I was with Motorola. We used to go to Chicago regularly. और वहाँ पे बैठ के जो सबसे बड़ी डिस्कशन होती थी वो ये होती थी कि oh my God, I hope one day we don't become just a pipe. And guess what? 19 years later, they have all just become a pipe. Because they failed to innovate, they failed, to your point, sir, they failed to include newer, brighter thinking within their setups. They did not include new thinking from entrepreneurs and startups because all they were focused on was their skill sets, which was कि जी cell site लगा दो, transistors on कर दो, पैसे आने लग जाएंगे. And that was the formula, right? It created billions of dollars around the world, trillions. But they failed to grow, they failed to innovate, they failed to include the people from Google, Facebook, Amazon, etc. Because those guys were simply, now those guys are using these people as a pipe. Or unke business models actually have failed. Because today, when you look at this business model, kya tha? Aapke upar ek charge lagta hai for airtime. When you travel abroad, you got hit by huge roaming charges. And you also got, the long distance charge jo aapko lagta tha. Today, how many of you actually use a long distance call? You do WhatsApp, you do a FaceTime call, you do Skype. So for a fixed charge, those guys are getting screwed, sorry to use a bad word. And the content that's flowing over is increasing. Ab wo 3G se 4G se 5G mein ab ja rahe hain. That means trillions of dollars of investment in the pipe. So that Facebook, Google, Amazon, etc., Daraz.com can continue to flourish. So I think I sort of try to answer कि जो failure है industry में इसमें.
I have questions. Yes.
Sorry, Jimmy, I can't see you. Right.
Sir, the short question is basically as an entrepreneur we have to do our own. But what facilitative role can play a role? For example, I am an entrepreneur, I am a Chinese entrepreneur. So how there is certain procedure involved. So what sort of facilitative role can government play? Secondly, why not the government inject risk capital to stop to support the newly established startups?
So देखिए फर्स्ट क्वेश्चन मेरा आपका पूरा वो क्लियर नहीं आया. आई थिंक वो मडल थी, वो आवाज़ बहुत आ रही थी. ज़रा फिर से क्या कहते थोड़ा सा मार्क को दूर रखें अपने से.
सर क्या गवर्नमेंट किस तरह एक फैसिलिटेटिव रोल प्ले कर सकती है to support the newly established startups?
जी, so that देखिए I am very happy to introduce, because again through the Prime Minister's Task Force on IT and Telecom, this is one of the recommendations we had given to the government, and they are actually in the process of announcing a government-based fund for a very large amount of money. मैं भी disclose नहीं करूँगा जब तक the government नहीं करेगी. And the concept of that is कि ये जो हम VC funds की बात कर रहे हैं यहाँ पे, venture capital funds जो आपको earlier मैंने दिखाए, तो the idea will be ये जो है, the idea will be कि if these VC funds choose to invest, let's say $1 million in your startup, the government fund will match with an equal amount of money. And I think that's a fantastic way to go forward, because उससे होगा ये कि दोनों की जो risk factor है वो mitigate हो रहा है to an extent. It's being spread over other people. अक्सर होता ये है कि VC funds जो है एक खुद नहीं करता, वो 2-3 के साथ करता है ताकि उसकी risk spread हो जाए. Now if there is another fund from the government matching those funds, I think it's a fantastic way forward, and that's coming soon, inshallah. In the next few weeks you will hear about that. ठीक है. I think there's the sense is कि कुछ लोग जाना चाह रहे हैं. Okay. I'm happy to answer any questions still अगर वो एक साथ पीछे हैं.
You have a question last or anything?
जी आप पूछना चाह रहे थे मुझसे पीछे से.
Can I please request you to make the question shorter, because क्या कहते हैं, we have multiple activities lined up ahead. Please. Okay, please go ahead.
The basic difference between innovation and creativity in the right now entrepreneurship.
So देखिए, there are different words, innovation and creativity. You have to be creative because you need to, I guess, look at different ways of approaching the same problem. Innovation typically means that you are actually trying to invent a whole new way of disrupting an existing business model. Most of the successful startups जो हैं दुनिया में, and I encourage that by the way, is not inventing a whole new rocket science. It's about looking at a current model and disrupting it, and that is called innovation. Creativity then is कि उसको आप किस तरह से creative तरीकों से उसको market करेंगे, उसको आगे लेके जाएंगे, उसको success बनाएंगे. I hope that answers it. Thank you. Thank you. As I said, let's think big, Let's think bold and let's build Pakistan together. Thank you.
Pro-Rector, Director, Foundation University, Dr. Abdul Ghafoor to the podium to present a shield of honor to our prestigious speaker.